Breaking into programming to go live to the Israeli Knesset in West Jerusalem, where a vote is happening right now on a new coalition government. These are live pictures from the Knesset in West Jerusalem. This is an historic moment. Could see the unseating of Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sent to the opposition. Standing by for us, we have Al Jazeera's Harry Fawcett. Harry, just run us through what's happening now.
Sorry, just as you were coming to me there, it seems that one of the members of the United Arab List, which is the Palestinian-Israeli party, which has been supporting the change bloc, 4 members in the Knesset. There was some discussion earlier on in the day that one of those members was unhappy with some of the details of the coalition agreement. And literally, as you were asking me that question, the second roll call was asked. He'd been absent, Saad al-Harumi, in the first roll call. In the second roll call, what I just heard in my ear, at least, was that he had abstained. Now, if that is the case, that means that it's 60 of the 120 seats voting in favor of the government, not the slender one-seat majority, 61 to 59, that they had been promising. They had 60-59, I'm just being told by my colleague as well. So that's confirmed that it's 61-59 is what they were expecting, what they were looking for. One of the members of the Palestinian-Israeli party voting with the change bloc has decided to abstain. That makes it 60-59. That could potentially leave things open to some kind of legal challenge, because this would be the first time that an Israeli government had been voted through on a plurality rather than an absolute majority. So this is a last-minute hitch. Whether it's decisive or not, we don't yet know, but it's extraordinary that at the last minute this extra obstacle, this extra roadblock has appeared before the change block.
Okay, Harry, we'll get you to stand by there for us while we listen in to what's happening there in the Knesset.
Members of Knesset, please be seated. The result of the vote: 64, 59 against.
חברים, בבקשה לשבת, לשמור על איפוק. אני מבקש מחברי הכנסת, אני מבין את השמחה.
Please remain calm. I understand the joy, but please,
אני קובע כי הכנסת הביעה אמון בממשלת חילופים.
The Knesset has voted the 36th government.
תכף נעשה, אם ירצו אולי לצאת, עוד 5 דקות.
As you can see there, these are pictures from inside the Israeli Knesset, where a vote has just happened on bringing in a new coalition government. As we heard there, 60 votes for, 59 against, and a surprise abstention. Let's bring in Al Jazeera's Harry Fawcett. Harry, just walk us through what's happening there.
Well, as I say, this one member of the United Arab List, he was unhappy about some of the details to do with one of the key things that Mansour Abbas, the leader of that party, had demanded in return for his support for this coalition that would oust Benjamin Netanyahu, to do with demolitions of Bedouin structures and homes in the Negev desert in Israel's south. He had indicated earlier in the day that he may make trouble for the government, that he may vote against it in various arenas, but the preponderance of what they were communicating was that he would at least vote in favor of the government. And they came out of a meeting ahead of this session beginning, the 8 leaders of the 8 constituent parts of this coalition, saying that they had a government. This now throws things at least into some doubt. It's not necessarily the end of things for them. Potentially they could get through on as slender as margin as 60 to 59. There are 2 abstentions, one from the joint list, the mainly Palestinian-Israeli joint list, which was always going to be outside the coalition, another abstention, more crucially, who was expected to vote in favor. But speaking to one of the party members of Naftali Bennett, the new Prime Minister designate, when we were talking earlier in the week about strategies and potentials, he was saying that if they don't get the full majority, the 61 out of the 120 seats in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, then it could allow some kind of Supreme Court challenge against it, because this has never been done before. Even a margin as slender as 61-59 has never voted in an Israeli government before. Now we're talking about not even an absolute majority, just one seat, and that seat not even being decisive in terms of taking it to an absolute majority. So it is another extraordinary twist in this tale. As for what's taken place up until this point, we heard from Naftali Bennett, who is supposed to be Prime Minister first under this new rotational deal with his partner, Yair Lapid. He was talking about a government that would come in and manage and steward the economy, deliver for Israelis after 2.5 years of stasis and political crisis and not even a budget being able to be passed. We heard from Benjamin Netanyahu, who listed his achievements as he saw them, put up obstacles, very clearly defining himself in opposition, not just to Naftali Bennett, but to Joe Biden, the US president, so causing real ructions between his outgoing, he thought, administration and the US presidency in order to put a big roadblock in the way of Naftali Bennett in terms of the question of Iran and the nuclear deal, also promising that he would do his utmost to scupper this new government as quickly as possible, saying that he would be back and that if he was to go into opposition, he would do so with his back straight, but that this government would not last. So now we have to work out exactly whether this government will indeed take power on this very slender majority. I think the chances are that it will, but that there could potentially be some kind of challenge to it. So we've got another few very interesting, to say the least, few days ahead of us.
Yeah, some last-minute twists and turns, which can never be ruled out. For now, though, it does appear that this new coalition has come into government, that Israel has a new Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, and that for Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, he is now in opposition. I believe we are going to listen in. No. Things seem to basically be wrapping up there in the Knesset. Harry, just tell us how it is that we got to this point. I mean, we've had, 4 elections since 2019 in Israel. How is it that even right-wing parties no longer want to see Netanyahu in power? You would think they would be somewhat or pretty much ideologically aligned.
Yes, but there are all sorts of things conspiring against that result taking place. I mean, if you think back to after the first election in this seemingly endless cycle of election after election, after that first election, the assumption was that, yes, exactly that, the right would stay together, that Netanyahu felt that he had all of his ducks in a row, all of his right-wing coalition partners there, taking him above the 61-seat requirement for a coalition government. But one of those right-wingers, the party belonging to Avigdor Lieberman, who was Netanyahu's chief of staff, he decided at the last minute that no, he was going to jump ship. He wasn't going to support Netanyahu, and that's what led to the first redo election. And then you look at other former allies of his, Gideon Sa'ar, who used to be in the Likud. He set up a right-wing party ahead of this election specifically to unseat Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that he could no longer the Prime Minister of Israel at a time when he had amassed so much of his policy making and so many of his priorities into his own personal, private fortunes, legal fortunes as
Harry,
well.
I'm just going to pause you there because Naftali Bennett is now speaking, so let's listen in.
And an alternate Prime Minister in the future, to withhold the laws of Israel, to fulfill my duty as Prime Minister and alternate Prime Minister, and to abide by the rules of the Knesset.
תודה רבה, בהצלחה. לא למחוא כפיים, תודה.
Okay, that was Naftali Bennett there pledging to uphold the laws of Israel, coming in as the new Prime Minister of that country. A tumultuous couple of years in Israeli politics, to say the least. Their vote there, getting to that point, 64, this new coalition, 59 against. I think let's speak now to Harry Fawcett. Harry, just remind us of how different ideologically the parties are that are in this new coalition.
Sure, yes. I mean, well, just to finish that thought about Naftali Bennett, he's another former close friend and ally of Benjamin Netanyahu, who himself is now working to unseat him. He may have thanked him at the beginning of his speech, but he's made it clear that Israel has been toxified by what he calls the divisiveness that Netanyahu has sort of perpetrated. And so that